Hello, my friends. Although there are no good news regarding a peace plan, President Biden has announced another military aid to Ukraine worth $2.4 billion.
Вы уже представили нам примерный план победы в этой войне, и это именно сегодня то, что мы будем сегодня обсуждать, чтобы вы смогли победить в этом конфликте. И я первые ключевые моменты укажу. Мы должны укрепить позиции Украины на поле боя, поэтому мы объявляем новый пакет военной помощи на 2,4 миллиарда долларов. Также мы все остальные средства, которые были выделены Конгрессом в этом году, мы предоставим Украине к концу этого года. Это укрепит позицию Украины. Дальше мы будем предоставлять Украине средства, чтобы она преуспела в долгосрочной перспективе. Мы будем поддерживать членство Украины в НАТО и в ЕС в конечном итоге и продолжать укреплять ваши демократические институты. Мы убедимся в том, чтобы у Украины были все необходимые средства для защиты от любой будущей агрессии со стороны России. И поэтому мы создаем определенные партнерства. Мы в этом году уже с 20 странами выразили приверженность обеспечить Украине долгосрочную гарантию безопасности. И вместе с 30 другими странами европейскими мы только что выпустили декларацию о восстановлении и реконструкции Украины в послевоенный период.
The support continues, and that's a good thing. At the very least, it ensures the defense can go on. And Vice President Kamala Harris made a statement. I expressed my unwavering support for Ukraine and the Ukrainian people. I will make every effort to ensure that Ukraine wins this war. The American people know very well that what freedom and independence mean. Putin's aggression is not just an attack on the people of Ukraine, it's also an attack on fundamental concepts like sovereignty and territorial integrity, said US Vice President Kamala Harris, a candidate for US President, after her meeting with Volodymyr Zelensky. As you can see, she is in favor of continuing to support Ukraine and not compromising with Russia or making peace deals as Trump has suggested. Their positions are completely different. Therefore, after the elections, it will be clearly how events will unfold. Without US support, conducting the war would be much harder. We've already seen this when there were delays in the aid packages. Now let's look at the developments along the front line, starting with the Kursk direction. It's evident there was an attempt to bring the war onto Russian territory, though only on a localized scale so far. Today there have been no significant changes. The Ukrainian forces have halted their offensive operations, and Russian counteroffensives have also come to a stop. As a result, the current fight consists mainly of artillery shelling and the use of FPV drones. In the Kharkiv direction, the shelling of the city continues. Yesterday, reports confirmed 3 more civilians were injured due to strikes using glide bombs. However, near the village of Lipty, the situation remains stable with no attempts by Russian forces to advance closer to Kharkiv. Meanwhile, fighting around Vovchansk continues, but Russian forces have made no gains. The front line remains unchanged for the day. In the Kupiansk direction, despite heavy activity, Russian forces have seen no new successes for the second day in a row. They continue to launch assaults near Sinkivka, and attacks have been reported near Kolesnikivka and Krugliakivka. Unfortunately, Russian troops have approached a water barrier and are celebrating the fact that they've managed to split the Ukrainian forces grouping in two. I always try to view the situation realistically, and I won't deny that Russia has had some localized successes. However, to push the Ukrainian forces fully across the water barrier and reach a reservoir at the current pace, it would take them months, if not a year, to complete the operation. They still have about 20 kilometers to cover to reach Borova, and the front line here is quite broad, around 60 kilometers, excluding the Kupiansk district. We've already seen how much time and resources it took them to breach the defenses around Avdiivka. Here, the intensity of combat is far lower. In the Svatove area, fighting around Lozova continues. Even though Russian forces have captured Stelmachivka, battles persist in the area. The Ukrainian forces are working to break the Russian advances and are preventing them from moving further across the fields. Additionally, fighting is reported near Andriivka, but Russian forces haven't seen any new gains here for several days. South of this area, the situation remains challenging. The Russians are conducting numerous assaults on Chernyshina, Druzhelyubivka, Grekivka, and Makiyivka. However, despite the efforts, the front line here remains unchanged as Ukrainian forces are repelling all attacks. To make any gains towards Borova, Russian forces will have to sacrifice many more soldiers. Near Borova, the defense line is holding, with Russian forces attempting to break through near Chernyshina to reach open terrain. However, even if they manage a breakthrough, the battles here will likely drag on for months. In the Kremina direction, battles for Nevsky are ongoing and attacks around Torsk continue without pause. Notably, the distance to the water barrier here is only 3 kilometers, yet even after a year of attempts, Russian forces have been unable to achieve the necessary breakthrough, which is encouraging news. In the Siversk direction, the Russians continue their assaults near Bilogorivka and Verkhnyokamensky. However, as before, no new Russian successes have been reported in this area. In the Chasiv Yar direction, fighting continues near Minkivka, where the Russians persist in trying to improve their positions to eventually stretch the northern flank over Chasiv Yar. Battles near Kalinivka also remain active, with Russian forces attempting to break through toward the village of Stupachki and launching assaults on Bila Hora. However, no significant advances have been made by the Russians over the past day, and the fighting continues. In the Toretsk direction, Russian forces are relentlessly storming Toretsk, pushing toward Sherbinivka, and attempting to force Ukrainian troops out of the outskirts of New York. Earlier, Ukrainian forces successfully launched a counterattack in this area. Despite the intense shelling, which continues at maximum capacity, the front line remains unchanged. In the Pokrovsk direction, the situation remains tense as the Russians continue their attempts to break through closer to the highway, though they haven't achieved any significant successes. Fighting is ongoing near Krasny Yar and Novogrodivka, where Russian forces are deploying reserves in an effort to advance closer to the outskirts of Mirnograd. The situation is also difficult near Solidove, but despite continuous fighting, the Ukrainian forces have successfully repelled all Russian attacks. Further south, Russian forces have claimed full control over Ukrainsk and continue their assaults on Tsukurene. However, over the past day, there have been no changes along the front line in the entire Pokrovsk direction, and the fighting persists. In the Kurakhove direction, the Russians are actively assaulting Maximilianivka, and in recent days, they have even managed to push closer to encircle the village. However, Ukrainian forces are holding off further attacks, preventing the Russians from quickly capturing it. Additionally, the Russians are attempting to break through the fields toward the village of Dalny, but there have been no changes along the front line here as well. Fighting for Katerynivka continues as well. In the Vuhledar direction, fighting continues for control of the city, with heavy battles occurring in the vicinity of Vodiane. Russian forces are attempting to break through across the fields, but despite a recent large-scale push, Ukrainian forces are preventing them from fully capturing the city. The Russians have already entered parts of Vuhledar and are trying to establish their positions. However, Ukrainian defenders continue to strike the advancing groups, and the situation remains fluid. To hasten an Ukrainian retreat, Russian forces have begun using incendiary shells, a tactic previously seen in Avdiivka and Bakhmut. According to most forecasts, holding Vuhledar long term will be extremely difficult due to the challenging circumstances on the ground. In the Zaporizhia direction, only shelling has been observed, with no new Russian attacks reported. Conflicting claims have emerged, with Russian sources initially stating that Ukraine is concentrated forces for a counteroffensive, while Ukrainian sources, including on-the-ground reports from the Ukrainian forces, suggest that it's in fact the Russians who are massing troops for a major offensive. However, for now, no active fighting is taking place along the front line, though airstrikes are already reaching Zaporizhia. In the Kherson direction, shelling of the right bank of the Dnipro River continues, with Russian forces making heavy use of drones. Additionally, there are ongoing reports of attempts by Russian troops to break through near Hola Pristan, but the front line remains unchanged for the time being. And that's all from me. So please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on all the latest news. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. Bye bye.